BeTheTalk, episode 172, featuring Rena DeLevie. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Rena DeLevie. Rena, are you ready to talk?
I am ready.
Rena DeLevie is a business coach, speaker, author of NTiP, the 4-step formula for not taking it personally. She's a Huffington Post columnist and TEDx presenter. Rena created the newly released Compassionate Management book based on 30 years working with Fortune 500s as a creative operations specialist and 14 years practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation. Her empathetic and business-focused approach has led to her being given a few nicknames, including Hippie MBA, COO of the Creative Process, The Vault, and How May I Help You? Rena DeLevie, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Your recent TEDx Tarrytown talk was called Using Compassion as a Business Tool. I love the talk. I relate to the talk from all kinds of different ways, but I mean, we've all been in that situation. Maybe it was years and years ago as a McDonald's employee or, fast food employee. I don't want to be name dropping brands, but we know that people quit managers oftentimes, but they join for the cause. And I just love your talk because it really takes us through all of these issues, takes you through a well-intentioned client bringing you in to do what you do best, and then code switching on you, saying you should have reamed them out when they said that unappropriate thing, which was actually not inappropriate at all. I'm going to get out of the way right now. I'm going to let you take us behind the talk, Rena.
Okay, thank you. So this person who wooed me to come in, she brought me in because she said, you do compassionate management. We need that here. Come do it. And then when an employee said something which I thought was appropriate, and I sort of moved the conversation along because it wasn't an appropriate context, the environment wasn't appropriate. This person who brought me in told me I should have shamed her publicly, which was quite stunning. I've had 20 years in corporate and 10 years in my own business now. So 20 years of being pooped on, and sort of fear-based management, threatening kind of approach. And that phrase, you should have shamed her publicly. I had an out-of-body experience because that was the pinnacle of fear-based management that I've ever experienced in my long career.
Rena, I would imagine, you hear that and you see the, kind of the evil Lord of the Rings, side of the person, the Gollum, Smeagol switch all of a sudden. Right. I would imagine you would kind of start disassociating from your body and start looking down on the situation a little bit, wondering, where's the exit?
Well, I did leave the company, actually. There's a balance we need to strike. I've actually written an article about it called PTJD, post-traumatic job disorder, where I was really traumatized by that job. Actually, I had nightmares for quite a while, and I was only there for 5 months. But there were other jobs before that where I also had nightmares, because we're humans and we all want to be seen, heard, and understood. And through so much of my career, it was get out of my way. I'm moving up the ladder. And I was guilty of it. I was 100% guilty of it. I was a gentle bully. I wasn't quite as bad as some of the people who managed me or who I saw managing other people, but I was not myself. I was acting in the way that I thought I needed to behave in order to rise up the ladder. And 9/11 shook me to my core. Thankfully, my loved ones and friends were okay, but it was very close anyway. I think you all understand it was something like 58% of the people in the world reassessed their life after 9/11 happened. And I was certainly one of them. And I kind of woke up from this trance of, I must manage this way in order to have a successful career. And I had already begun meditating, and I just sat there and I thought, even though you're trying not to think when you're meditating, but you do anyway. And I thought, you know what? Who do I want to be in this world? And so I made a shift right at that moment of I was just going to show up as me, which is sensitive, empathetic, intense. And I love connecting with people. And I had been doing the opposite. And I thought, even if I don't rise up the ladder, this is what I want to do. And I started doing it, and I was so much happier. And in terms of efficiency, I got a lot more out of the team. I was managing about 80 people at that point. It was extraordinarily tense because it was in fashion retail and nobody was buying anything after 9/11. So we were, laying people off and restructuring and all of that. And it was extraordinarily tense. And so the more I came in and said, how may I help you? The more people were like, really? And then I would actually help them. And, it was much more trusting and collaborative and fun.
Those were rough days after 9/11. The economy especially in New York City. We were looking at that. I was living in the Midwest at the time, and it was just difficult to watch. And the city has more than rebounded since, fortunately. I want to get back to your talk a little bit because, Rena, I think one of the great points you bring up that just makes it all make sense is that when you use fear-based default management, it's a short-term motivator. It's very short-term. As soon as you play that card, people are really looking to go somewhere else and do something else. And
right.
It's very interesting because right now we've got the lowest unemployment in modern, United States history. And so it's all of a sudden gone from, do we have, we don't have extra jobs for people, to where do we find the people to fill these jobs, and how do we possibly get any, competitive cultural advantage? So I love that you bring that up. You've got books for everything. So folks, we're not going to have enough time to really dig into all of the things. The question that I really have been wanting to ask, when that, going back to the Lord of the Rings boss evil side came out, and how long did it take for you to extricate yourself from that? And more importantly, what do we do? Because we've all had that moment where we see the evil twin side of the manager or the boss, and we realize that there's been some kind of breach, and we realize that we're seeing something that, even though we're going to try to, put it back together, it's really not our place necessarily. Only so much we can do, and we have to look for other options. What did that look like for you? And what would you counsel people that are in that situation even right now? What do we do? And is there a way to breach that up?
So its context is extremely important here. So there were, for 20 years when I was in-house, I'll give you an example. I had a boss who, because we were working on a catalog and he wanted the spacing different from the standard. And when I said, hey, the spacing is different from the standard, he said, just do it. And I thought, okay. So then when it came back, the printed version, he was like, I don't understand. Why is and I was like, but you asked me to. And for 2.5 hours, he yelled at me and called me a Nazi communist for following him and not speaking up. So, at that moment I had another, but that was much earlier.
I'm picking my jaw up for those of you on the podcast. I'm literally picking my jaw up.
I think a lot of people are not picking up their jaw. I think a lot of people are going, yep, been there. I ended up staying for another 5 years so I was there for a total of 8 years because I could see that he had some issues, that it really didn't have anything to do with me. And if I could separate them out and just do the good work, there was a ton of opportunity at the company. Also, let's be fair, I was young and insecure and didn't think anyone else would hire me. So, there's multiple factors here. I'm glad I stayed for all those years because I really grew up there and I really got to know and live and breathe fear-based management to such a degree of minutia that it really helped me codify compassionate management. And so the experience that I had years later, where she told me to shame someone publicly, I lasted 5 months. It was about 2.5 months after that incident. And I had immediately begun to look for other work, find, consulting clients, like immediately take action because I was older, I was more experienced, I was more confident, and I no longer had the interest in even trying to figure it out. Also because the first example, he was just, he was super passionate and a little bit, kooky, like some creatives are. She was truly damaged. She was the one who shamed publicly. She was truly damaged, and public humiliation and public shame was a part of her everyday management. So it was very different. So I would recommend stop and assess, what's the pros here? What are the cons here? What can I manage with? What kind of colleagues do I have around me to help me buffer the situation? Is it worth staying, or do I need to move on? And it's very personal.
Wow. So we're talking to Rena DeLevie here. We're about to pivot over to the Blitz Round, but before we do, actually, I just feel like I need to send out an appeal to Talk Universe. Those of you in Talk Universe listening to this or watching this right now, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh," you're feeling a little aware. And maybe you're having a Scrooge ghost of Christmas yet to come moment right now. I want to just let you know, hey, there's no shame here. We're all products to some degree of our environment, and it's a little bit Darwinian out there, survival of the fittest. So maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, I've been looking for a way to change. I've been looking for a way to switch. Rena can help you do that. So with that being said, hey, let's pivot over in just a moment to the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with Rena DeLevie. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask her a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent branded talk. Are you ready, Rena?
I am ready.
Were you selected to speak, or did you apply?
I applied. I applied once and got rejected, and then I applied a second time to a different one and got accepted.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
I am definitely a blender, I would say. I mean, I love what I'm talking about. I'm passionate about it. So I don't need notes per se, but when I did my TED Talk, you better be sure I had some notes. I didn't bring them up with me, but I had practiced and practiced.
So that said, did you have nerves when you walked out, or were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
It's interesting because I really don't have nerves when I present. I love it. But the TED Talk, I had dry mouth like crazy. I took a swig of water, swallowed it, got up on stage, and then I was in the zone and I was just flowing.
Rena, what's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helped you?
Yeah, I always, even if you don't meditate, I do a little quick meditation before I go up anywhere. But it's breathing. Breathing is masterful, powerful, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good. It centers you and brings you back to your core.
Here's the cut for time question. Rena, what was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
There wasn't any. I mean, I'm really, I don't have any problem cutting out. If it's not meaningful and useful, it's out.
Experienced public speaker. Because the rest of us, when we're getting into the act, it's like everything is just so important and precious, and we can't let go of it. So great response. What is the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
I loved how I'm a very interactive speaker, and I don't like just standing up there and reading bullet points. And I loved how even with the TED Talk, I would engage with the audience and they engaged with me, and it was great.
We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Rena DeLevie, and her recent talk was called Using Compassion as a Business Tool. You can connect with her on our show notes page. We're going to have a link to that TEDx talk, and we're going to have a link to her website, managementformillennials.com, managementformillennials.com. And in a moment, we'll be right back with Rena DeLevie and the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with Rena DeLevie. It is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Show up. Show up fully as who you are. Amen.
Rena DeLevie, thank you so much. Right after your book dropped, you took the time to meet with us here on the talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Love your show.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.